One of the most interesting parts of Star Wars for me has been the expansive universe. The various planets and seemingly disconnected timelines of the people on them draws emphasis to just how vast the galaxy far, far away actually is. Which makes sense, galaxies are big. But something we never have to sit through in the movies and games is the actual trip down to those planets. It's generally a view of the planet up from orbit, and then boom, we're in the atmosphere. So, should an open world game that features moments like this be any different? Let's take a look at how well Star Wars Outlaws aims to handle space exploration compared to other games like Starfield, Star Citizen, and No Man's Sky. Is this the ideal approach? Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. So many of you have probably given Starfield a go, or at least heard the criticisms of its loading screens. I had a nice long talk about this with my friend Morphologist on my podcast last year. A loading screen separating you from the planet you're looking at is a bit jarring and reminiscent of older space games. In this age of games, the technology exists to simulate that planetary approach, or at least hide it in a transitionary phase. Elite Dangerous and No Man's Sky do this extremely well, with the latter making the transition to space take mere seconds. Elite Dangerous has a bit of a different system, but the game is mainly focused on space, realism, and the galaxy at large, and thus doesn't feature planets quite the same way, something Elite Dangerous fans are quite proud of. In Star Wars Outlaws, there is some interesting loading going on using the Snowdrop engine, which is the same engine that was used to build the Division games, arguably not space games. Rather than an entirely seamless transition, the team at Massive has developed a cloaked loading segment that depends on a cloud screen when you enter the atmosphere and streams out the location you're coming from and streams in the location you're going to, while keeping you mostly on rails and sending you to a designated location. This streaming is incredibly useful in space games with their large sizes, and is part of the reason so many games can now handle multiple planets in an immersive fashion, but it takes investment and time. Something Bethesda may not have had for a project like Starfield. When traveling from planet to space, of course, you also have reputation that follows you, so simply flying away from the location doesn't get you out of trouble and adds some connectivity between the ground and space. And when up in space, the areas around these planets act as their own hubs for activities. Freighters will need saving, pirates will need killing, and even space stations will act as secondary points of interest that you can dock at to stretch your legs, take part in activities, get new missions, and meet other NPCs. But what will these locations really offer that differentiates them from cities? I can't really tell you from what I've seen, as I haven't gotten to play the game yet myself, but I don't expect too much. But these points of interest shouldn't just be copies of each other with different coats of paint. However, diversifying them generally requires aspects more common in space sims, things that Massive may not have the time to focus on. The complications of gravity, heat, oxygen, and water scarcity that comes with space travel. And while you'll have different distinctions of safety in those space locations, meaning regulated and unregulated space, from what I've seen, you're only looking at the Empire as an enforcing faction, despite the crime syndicates playing a big role in the game. Now again, I haven't gotten to play the game, so the way this plays out could actually be a lot more expansive than what I know. I do think this is a part of the game that could be expounded upon to make you a lot more wary of who you're dealing with and where. Considering your reputation follows you from the ground to space when it comes to the Empire, it really should also focus on the crime syndicates, and that's something I'll be looking out for when I do get my hands on this. Again, this is a space adventure game, not a space sim or even a space flight focused game. What we're seeing isn't the holy grail of planet to space transition that people sometimes want. This is not truly seamless flight down to a planet. Being able to spot a location anywhere on a planet, land at that location, and get out of your ship is a couple steps above this. It's not easy to do though, and it takes way more money than Ubisoft would likely want to spend on a game that is meant to offer the most widely accessible experience for a Star Wars adventure. So if that's what you're looking for, this probably isn't it. And that ultimately is the defining factor of these space sims and space games. What's most important for Star Wars Outlaws is different from No Man's Sky, is different from Elite Dangerous, is different from Star Citizen. In Star Citizen, you have fully modeled transitions from space to planet, atmospheric re-entry effects, cloud systems, weather, and the ability to see exactly where you want to go down below before you actually head there. But that's a pretty slow process, both in terms of the gameplay it takes and the time it takes to develop. But with that system, Star Citizen still remains the only project of those in this video that allows the ability to walk around and leave your ship whenever you want. Again, focusing on something different from the others. So, is this spaceflight done right? In an age where we can make space to planet transitions work, should companies dedicate resources to the most immersive and impressive experience, or should they focus on their strengths and choose the best smoke and mirrors for an experience that maybe still captures the magic of orbital re-entry without sinking so much time and money into it? As a bit of a halfway implementation between Starfield and No Man's Sky, I appreciate what Star Wars Outlaws is trying to do with the resources they have, and I hope this model of spaceflight is used and iterated on more and more as hopefully more large studios take stabs at the space game genre. There are a number of games in this area that offer different experiences, and while my personal choice is Star Citizen, it's great to see this genre grow year after year. Fun fact, this model of atmospheric re-entry on rails right down to a certain location is actually what Star Citizen was originally meant to be before they figured out how to accurately model planets and allow players to explore them in their entirety back in 2015. While I'm glad for the game we got, I do have a few different videos on my channel that explains just how much additional work what they've chosen has added to the game. Ultimately, I think Star Wars Outlaws is picking a pretty good midpoint for the atmospheric re-entry model, and overall I think spaceflight is actually looking like it might be pretty fun for a game like this where, as 10 years ago, I think it would have been a lot more focused on just the on-foot segments. While the game won't be releasing until the end of this month, I'm hoping we get more eyes on this to see just how far they go with spaceflight and a little bit of exploration. And if you're still watching this video, I'm incredibly thankful to you. I'm not sure how good this game will be looking at the gameplay showcases, but early previews from different creators and news outlets do seem to be better than they were just a few weeks ago. And I know I'm interested in just about anything that has a spaceship in it. So I look forward to providing additional looks into this if you guys like the coverage. Let me know down below in the comments if you'd like more. I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll catch you in the next.